The air at the waterfront ballroom smelled like a lie. Impossibly rich frosting, heavy white lilies, and my mother's signature cloying perfume. A scent so sweet, it felt impossible to breathe. The string quartet had just faded, and the band shifted into a soft, romantic piece, a soundtrack for deception. My mother, Veronica, leaned in close to me, her face fixed in a radiant, practiced smile for the cameras that hovered nearby. Her voice was light, casual, as though commenting on the floral arrangements. "We're passing the car Reese's parents gave you over to your sister Stella," she said. The words were an immediate, internal shock. Stella stood right beside her, giggling, the sequins on her designer dress flashing under the chandeliers. "Relax, Aude," Stella added, waving a manicured hand. "It's just a car. You and Reese will only need one anyway." The guests were oblivious, bathed in champagne and candlelight. But my entire world tilted. My stomach dropped, cold and final, like a deep-sea anchor hitting rock bottom. I felt Reese's hand tighten imperceptibly on the small of my back, a silent question. He didn't move, his expression calm yet utterly unreadable. That look, that controlled, silent witness changed everything. They say weddings reveal who truly loves you. Mine revealed with brutal clarity who never did. I was raised in a family that worshipped the illusion of fairness, but only ever lived by the law of convenience. My mother, Veronica, a woman whose life was a continuous, high-stakes performance, loved order, the kind of order that kept her social standing impeccable and kept me quiet and compliant. My father, Charles, was the man who believed silence fixed everything. He was an expert in quiet withdrawal, enabling her entitlement with his absence. Stella, my younger sister, was designated the delicate one. The world was expected to bend for her comfort, her fleeting passions, and her constant need for rescue. And I, Audrey,
the architectural designer who paid her own way, was the resource, the hinge that made the entire mechanism move. That pattern defined my childhood. Stella getting the biggest room because she claimed a fear of the dark. Stella crashing her first car, twice, and Mother blaming the city planning. When I finally bought my own reliable vehicle, after years of double shifts and strict saving, Veronica called it good character building. Stella was the reason. I was the means. It was a constant, exhausting equation. Someone always taking, someone always explaining the taking as a form of love. By 29, I had finally engineered an escape. I built a life outside their carefully constructed script. A successful career designing spaces that honored boundaries. A woman who paid her own mortgage and never borrowed anything that couldn't be easily repaid. Meeting Reese Jensen felt like stepping into an open field of clean, honest sunlight. He came from a family who understood the deep, quiet gravity of respect. His parents weren't ostentatiously rich, but they were generous in the ways that truly matter, listening, trusting, and handing you the space to simply be. At our rehearsal dinner, Reese's father placed a small silver key in my hand, nestled within a simple white envelope. "You two built a life together," he said, his eyes warm. "Here's something reliable to help you move forward." It was a clean, used, dependable sedan, titled entirely in my name. The gift wasn't about the metal or the engine. It was about the trust, the partnership, the kind of gift you protect fiercely because it comes with no strings attached. That night, I caught my mother's expression, tight, polite, her smile fixed, but her eyes already calculating the value. She'd cooed politely at Reese's parents. How thoughtful! But her gaze had instinctively flicked toward Stella, a reflexive measurement of what her preferred daughter was currently lacking. I should have recognized it immediately for what it was. The first flashing warning light. The morning of the wedding, Veronica fussed over my hair, told me how proud she was. "You've always been so wonderfully giving, Aude," she'd said, smoothing my antique veil. "Don't ever lose that." Her heavy perfume filled the room, sweet and suffocating, masking the deeper truth. The compliment was a command. Stay open, stay exploitable. I smiled back, pretending not to hear the cold message behind the praise. But a cold, hard knot had already settled in my stomach. Some gifts, I knew, are never meant to be shared with those who believe they are entitled to them.
The reception was a sensory overload, a loud, glittering performance of happiness. Laughter echoed off the high ceilings, glasses clinked, and 1,000 polite, well-dressed smiles performed the scene. Reese's hand rested on my back as we swayed to the music, and for a fragile moment, the world felt safe. Then I saw Veronica cutting through the crowd, her practiced, pageant smile set in place. She stopped beside us, her perfume announcing her arrival, and delivered her edict, speaking just loud enough for the adjacent tables and the wedding photographer to hear the supposed benevolence in her voice. "We're passing the car his parents gave you over to your sister." Every sound in the cavernous room seemed to warp and blur. The band's saxophone solo suddenly sounded like a wailing siren. Stella appeared, radiating confidence under the fairy lights, the sequins on her dress throwing sharp, triumphant shards of light across her grin. "Relax, Aude," she repeated, throwing a performative, dramatic shrug. "It's literally just a car. We'll all use it eventually." It was never about the car. It was about everything that had ever been taken from me: my space, my time, my resources, and then meticulously repackaged and presented back to the world as my family's great kindness. I focused on my mother's face, perfectly composed, benevolent, utterly sure in her righteousness. She tilted her head, waiting for me to perform the required gratitude and surrender. "You and Reese can easily manage with one vehicle," she added, her fingers tightening on my arm in a subtle, controlling grip, entirely missed by the photographer who snapped a picture of the loving mother and daughter. "You've always been so practical." I didn't respond. Reese's thumb brushed the inside of my wrist, a small, subtle signal. "Are you okay?" I inhaled the choking mix of frosting, expensive wine, and the decades-old taste of my own obedience. My father, Charles, drifted over, drawn by the sudden tense tone in Veronica's voice, but not by genuine concern. "What's the issue?" he asked, his eyes flicking nervously between us, avoiding direct confrontation. "Nothing serious, Richard," Veronica answered quickly, already controlling the narrative. "Just helping Stella out. She's had awful luck with cars. We told Audrey she could share." Share? The word hit me like a physical bruise. I thought about the endless nights I had stayed up editing Stella's disastrous resume, the borrowed dress she had lost and never replaced, the countless quiet apologies I had made on her behalf. All those small surrenders deceitfully disguised as familial love. I smiled then, a small, calm, and utterly dangerous smile. "You're right, Mother," I said, my voice quiet enough to force them to lean closer. "I don't mind sharing." Veronica's entire body relaxed, instantly mistaking my calm for defeat, my quiet voice for the familiar surrender she had always expected. But Reese didn't relax. His hand found mine again, steady and certain. The fairy lights above flickered, and the air felt painfully tight, like the final loaded silence just before a storm breaks. I leaned closer to Reese and whispered, "It's starting again. The script is running." He looked at me, not with surprise, but with profound readiness. In that quiet exchange, I knew the simple truth. They didn't come to Seattle to celebrate me. They came to test how much of me was still their property. After the cake was cut and the music softened, the room began to empty. I smiled through photos that tasted like dust and counted the minutes until I could breathe air that wasn't heavy with expectation. When the last of the distant relatives disappeared, Reese and I slipped out a side door into the cool, dark hallway. He leaned against the wall, unbuttoning his tight collar. "Do you want me to confront them?" he asked, his voice low. "No," I said, my voice steady, solid. "We already did." He frowned, then a slow understanding dawned in his eyes. We had talked about this months ago, half joking over cheap takeout, my mother's ingrained habit of viewing my possessions as communal, family property. It was inherited behavior, and I had decided to stop being inheritable. 2 weeks before the wedding, a paralegal coworker helped me draft a carefully worded, notarized declaration. It stipulated that every wedding gift received in my name was legally protected, explicitly not to be transferred, sold, or gifted without my specific written consent. I signed it in precise blue ink. Reese signed as the witness.
I remembered the paralegal's exact words when she stamped the document. "You're not being paranoid, Audrey. You are being prepared." In the hallway, Reese reached for my hand. "You knew this was a possibility." "I hoped it wouldn't be," I admitted, but I refused to bleed again without a bandage. Reese's phone buzzed, a text from one of the last remaining guests. "Your sister is already posting about the new car." He turned the screen toward me. There it was, a smug, filtered photo from the Jensen family garage. Stella posing triumphantly beside the silver sedan with the caption, "Finally got a ride that fits me. New chapter." I laughed once, dry, low, and utterly devoid of humor. She couldn't even wait until morning. "So what do we do now, Aud?" Reese asked, his eyes meeting mine. I reached for my clutch bag, my fingers brushing the thick, folded declaration inside. "Now," I said, my voice quiet, "we let them open their own trap." We straightened our clothes, fixed our smiles, and walked back toward the relentless music. The storm had already turned direction, and I was holding the compass. We walked back into the ballroom. The air was thinner now, colder. Conversation faltered. My mother was near the cake table, laughing too loudly, a queen restored to her stage. Stella hovered beside her, scrolling performatively on her phone. When she saw us, Veronica's smile widened further. "There they are," she called, her voice booming. "Everyone was wondering where the bride went. We're wrapping up soon, darling. Stella needs a ride home anyway." Reese stepped forward, his voice light, polite, and surgically precise. "She has one now, doesn't she, Mrs. Bennett?" Veronica blinked. "What, the car?" "Yes, I said she's taking it now." Stella tensed, her eyes flicking nervously between us. "Oh, come on, Aud," she started, the forced sweetness gone. "Don't make this weird. It's just a car." "It's just a car," I finished for her, "the one you stole last night." Charles wandered closer, attempting to deploy his useless peacekeeping silence. "Can we not do this here?" "Here is exactly where we're going to do it, Dad," I said, turning to him, calm and composed. "Because this is where she did it, publicly." The band faltered, then kept playing, but the damage was done. Several guests turned their heads. Veronica's smile stiffened into a grotesque mask. "Audrey, sweetheart, you are overreacting. It was a simple misunderstanding." "It wasn't a misunderstanding," I said. Reese stepped forward, holding out a thick white envelope toward my mother. "You might want to read this before you finish that sentence." Her hand hesitated, then reluctantly took the paper. She glanced at Stella, then at me, then unfolded the document. The rustle of the thick paper was loud enough to cut the remaining music. Stella leaned in to read over her shoulder. At first, confusion, then recognition, then the blood draining from her face, inch by painful inch. Veronica tried to laugh, a desperate, brittle sound. "What in God's name is this? A notarized declaration?" "Executed 2 weeks ago," I confirmed. "It states that all wedding gifts titled in my name cannot be sold, gifted, or transferred without my explicit written consent. Any attempt to do so triggers an immediate legal review and permanently forfeits any future claim to an inheritance from the Jensen family estate." The last words landed like a granite stone dropped into still water. Conversation stopped. Absolute silence fell upon the ballroom. Stella let out a panicked, broken laugh. "You can't be serious. This is petty, Aud." "No," I said softly, meeting her eyes fully. "Petty is pretending theft is family tradition. This is an insurance policy." Veronica's voice hardened into steel. "We are your family. You don't treat us like criminals over a minor inconvenience." "You went into our locked garage last night, took photos of the car, and publicly posted the theft on social media," I replied, my voice even. Stella's face froze. Reese cut in, his tone polite but lethal. "The post is still live, Mrs. Bennett. It's symbolic of what, exactly?" I turned to my mother, ending the pretense. "This isn't about the car, Mother. It's about the pattern. You call it love when you take what's mine, and then you praise me for being good for giving it." "You are being utterly dramatic," she snapped.
Maybe, I conceded, but this time the drama has witnesses. A ripple went through the guests. Phones were half raised, half hidden. Stella's voice finally cracked, laced with pure, desperate fear.
You'd really embarrass us, the family, like this?
I'm not embarrassing anyone, I said. I'm simply ending the script. Reese took my hand, his presence a perfect anchor. His tone was even, calm, and final. Mrs. Bennett, you should keep that document. It's now legal documentation of your attempted transfer. Veronica stared at him as if he had personally violated her. You encouraged this. No, Reese corrected gently. She didn't need encouragement, Mrs. Bennett. She only needed respect. Stella's face turned scarlet. You married up, didn't you? Think you're better than us now. I did better, I corrected, a faint, genuine smile touching my lips. I married boundaried, absolutely. We raised you to be kind, Veronica pleaded, desperation entering her voice for the first time. You raised me to give, I countered, and you taught her to take. That was the fracture. The one sentence that split the air in half. The band stopped playing altogether. Veronica's perfect composition finally shattered. Her voice wavered. Audrey, please, don't do this in front of everyone. Then you shouldn't have done it to me in front of everyone, I said. She opened her mouth, but the words were gone. The silence was thick enough to touch. Reese leaned into the bandleader. Play something, he ordered quietly. Music rose again, soft, defiant, a renewed heartbeat. Reese pulled me gently back onto the dance floor. The remaining guests parted like we were royalty, or perhaps a bomb waiting to detonate. As we moved, I caught my reflection in the mirrored pillar, my mother's face, pale and still, Stella's mascara smudged, my father staring at the floor. The envelope sat on the cake table, a solitary testament between empty glasses. Reese whispered, "Breathe." I am, I said, and for the first time in 29 years, it was true. When the song ended, I turned to my parents, still frozen near the cake table. Help isn't theft, I said evenly, and love isn't access. I placed my empty champagne flute beside the envelope and walked away with Reese through a sea of quiet stares. Behind us, the applause was absent, replaced only by whispers that sounded like the wind through a cracked door. Outside, under the string lights, I exhaled the weight of years. Reese slipped his arm around me. You okay? I nodded. I think I just stopped apologizing. He smiled. About time. We stepped into the cool night. The drive home was quiet, the kind of deep quiet that felt profoundly earned. The city lights blurred past, soft and far away. I rolled the window down, letting the cold wind pull at my veil until it came loose and drifted into the darkness. Reese chuckled under his breath. You just threw away your movie moment. Good, I said. I don't want one. We drove in silence after that, hand in hand, the same silver car they tried to steal humming smoothly beneath us. Every mile was distance from an old, festering wound. When we reached our house, Reese turned off the engine, but didn't move. You did it, he said quietly. You broke the pattern. Inside, the kitchen still smelled faintly of the morning coffee we never finished. I slipped out of my shoes, feeling the cool tile beneath my feet. On the counter, my phone was buzzing relentlessly with missed calls. Veronica, Stella, unknown numbers. I turned it face down. Outside, the crickets filled the air. The silence didn't ache, it settled. A week later, I stood in our kitchen with sunlight spilling across the floor. The same house, the same car in the driveway, but everything inside me felt fundamentally rewired. I realized freedom didn't have to roar, it could whisper. It was the sound of a phone that didn't ring with demands, of doors I could lock without guilt. People say families fall apart because of pride or money. Maybe. But sometimes they fall apart because one person finally stops pretending. I looked out the window and whispered,
Boundaries don't destroy families, they define them.
If you've ever had to draw a line with someone who called it love, know that you are not alone, and you don't owe anyone your peace.